Alright guys, good morning. Welcome back. In this video we're going to talk about manifestation and some of the basics and how it works. But before we start, I'm going to give a little definition of what manifestation is. Now, this is something I had to look up too, and while I'm doing all this on video, I'm actually learning myself. Alright, what is manifestation? Well, basically manifestation seems like it's magic, but it's really not. It's actually a process where focused thought, alignment of emotions, and consistent behavior shape your perception, influence your decision making, and ultimately guide your actions towards achieving a goal or an outcome. So that future version of yourself, you want to manifest that by focused thought, emotional alignment, and just that repetition, that consistent behavior. Right? So let's write that down. So manifestation consists of focused thought, right? Your alignment of emotions with that thought, and the repetition or the consistent behavior with the focused thought and the alignment of the emotions. So thought, you could think a thought and go on with your day. But when you have that focused thought of who you want to be or where you want to be, or who you want to be with, just a goal, thoughts of your goal mixed with the alignment of emotions, like when you achieve that goal, how will you feel? Will you feel excited? Will you feel like you're a winner? You probably feel really good. So these two together, along with your consistent behavior, will help you manifest whatever you want in life. There are certain parts of manifestation that I want to touch upon based on my reading, and some of those are the reticular activating system. A lot of this, I'll try to kind of break it down in layman's terms, which I had to do for myself in actually trying to learn this. But the reticular activating system, right, is a part of the neural network in your brain. Now, this system right here is basically like a bouncer, or a bouncer at the club, or a filter. It's basically, it filters sensory information, and it prioritizes it based on what you notice, what your thought is. So basically, let's say you're focusing on a goal, for instance, a new car or a new house, a new life. Your reticular activated system tunes your attention towards the opportunities and the information relevant to that goal. So basically, it's going to block out everything else that does not have to do with that goal. So one of the most used examples would be, let's say, I bought a new mountain bike or a new car, let's say. I think that's the example most people use, a new car. Okay. I bought a Corvette, let's say. Now I start seeing Corvettes everywhere, whether it be whatever color, but mostly in my color. I'll start seeing, because the reticular activating system, your brain starts filtering out things that don't matter, and it starts to filter in things that do matter, things that align with your goal. All right. So basically, the reticular activating system is a filter. Another aspect of manifestation would be the neuroplasticity of your brain. So basically that means that the brain actually rewires itself based on your focused thought, your emotions, and your consistent behavior. All right, a thought is basically, in my understanding, electrical signals. It's between synapses or synaptic connections within the brain. So neuroplasticity comes into play when you want to get rid of that old way of thinking, your negative thoughts, bring in some positive thoughts, some new ways of thinking, new goals that you set. Your brain will rewire when you have that focused thought, alignment of emotions, and consistent behavior. All right, so how do you say rewire our brain? So one thing could be repeating that thought or thoughts, and alignment of emotions. Repeating thoughts, you could repeat affirmations. We could visualize, right? Visualize success. And those will create new neural pathways. Right? Now, when we create those new neural pathways, it's either you use it or you lose it. So that's where that repetition comes in. All right? Repetition is key. All our lives, decades, I've thought negative. Turning that around is proving to be pretty hard, and the struggle is real. Right? All right. So another thing that comes into play is cognitive bias. Right? So when we start having that focused thought, the alignment of emotions, we start to see evidence that supports our beliefs, okay, or our thoughts. And we'll get into belief in another video. We'll dive deep into belief, because I believe that's an important topic, to touch upon when you're trying to manifest. So cognitive bias, when you start believing something is possible, your brain becomes more likely to find proof that it is, right? So the small wins. So brain looks for proof, right? A lot of times you gotta have faith. You gotta believe. I don't know who's religious here, but faith is a big part of it, right? All right, so lastly, I want to say a big part of this is your behavioral. So activate your behavior. Thoughts alone are great, aligned with your emotions, but you have to change your choices or your habits in life, decisions, Decide to be happy, decide to be rich, decide to be successful, decide to be positive, right? So when you change your thinking, your decisions and behavior change as well. Right? So what I did was I put together a sort of like a morning routine for myself. Now it's just a matter of following through and practicing that morning routine. And it has to do with priming the brain for manifestation. You know, becoming the person I want to become, leaving my 9-to-5, becoming financially independent. All right, so I'll go ahead and dive into that right now. So my morning routine with manifestation maybe lasts right now about 10 to 15 minutes. You know, this is something that you may want to incorporate into your morning, but I found it to be very helpful. Because it's not like I'm always rushing. I actually wake up earlier now and try to fit this in, and it makes my day go by much smoother because my thoughts are aligned, my feelings are aligned, my morning wasn't rushed, so I don't have that stress. So maybe start off with 5 to 10 minutes, right? First thing I do, breath work. I think I spoke about this in a previous video. I do box breathing, 4 seconds in, 4 second hold, 4 second release, 4 second hold, right? And then we keep going. 4 seconds. And you could do it for however long you want. So for me, that's 16 seconds. I do it about 5 cycles, trying to build up, you know, whatever calms you down, whatever brings you more relaxed or into alignment, able to think clearly. Then I go into a practice of gratitude, right? I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And that could be anything. It could be simple. It could be waking up. It could be your morning cup of coffee. It could be, you know, that you have a house, your kids are healthy. It could be anything, you know. So gratitude activates the prefrontal cortex and reduces your negativity bias. You see the small things that you have, you're grateful for. You'll be grateful for the big things when they come, and you won't take them for granted. So after gratitude, we do some visualization. You know, I sit quietly and I visualize my outcome in detail, or at least I try to, how it looks, how it feels, how it smells, where am I, you know, and I want to try to engage my emotions. I want to act as if it's already there. I want to act as if I open my eyes, that person is me. All right, and this kind of activates your RAS, or reticular activating system. All right, and reinforces the rewards of success. Next, maybe I'll throw in some affirmations, right, to go along with that visualization. One of them could be, I attract money from the multiple sources. You know, I am a money magnet. I'm attracting aligned opportunities every day. So that repetition reinforces self-belief, and it activates that neuroplasticity, you know, rewiring of the brain. All right. Oops, sorry. All right, so after that, we'll go ahead and set some micro intentions. All right, micro intentions. So basically 3 actions that I want to take during the day in order to reach my goal. How would the person I want to be act? How would the person I want to be feel? Take goals towards achieving that. So when I plan, I find myself following through more times than not. All right? All right. So, all right. That's the morning routine. During the day, I'm trying to incorporate a daily routine. You know, you could set an alarm. You could do it every hour, however you want, right? So, and this one is pretty simple. Basically, you're just checking up on yourself, right? So, did you act on your intentions? Be honest with yourself. And if you haven't, how can you do it right now? No time like the present, right? Even if they're small, your action creates feedback loops that reinforce your goal pursuit, okay? And then I'll go ahead and actually do a mental check-in, all right? I'll ask, am I aligned right now? Am I aligned with my goal? You know, am I doing everything I can to achieve that goal? You know, I may be stuck at work, but that's just part of the process, you know. I want to make sure my mind is right at work as well. All right. So by checking in with yourself, you strengthen your self-regulation and you keep your cognitive system primed, all right? All right, so I'll do that during the day when that alarm goes off, or usually every hour. For me, it's every hour. All right. And then lastly, I'll have my evening routine. All right, evening routine. And this one could last about 10 minutes as well. It depends. So, you know, I've been doing it for about 5 minutes. So, first thing I'll do in the evening, carve out some time, and I'll do some reflection. You know, how well did my day go? Was it a shitty day? Why was it a shitty day? Was it a great day? Why was it a great day? You know, usually I try to look for the positives. Write down what went well. You know, I find it so much more relaxing to write down everything now. Now, if you can't do that, just go ahead and do it in your mind. You know, even if things did go well, how can you improve? Write down what went well today. You know? So when you write that down, that reinforces self-efficacy and reward circuitry. You know, you get those dopamine hits. You know, and you start believing. You start believing that the process is working. You start believing you are becoming that person. Or getting closer to what you want. You know. After that, I'll go ahead and repeat or rehearse my visualization. You know, step into that scene again. You know, that person you want to become, that thing you want, that object you want. You know, it could be anything. I've seen myself confident, you know, handling tomorrow's actions, being grateful for what opportunities I had today. You know, that enhances my preparedness and neural rehearsal. You know, you see athletes doing this all the time. Just that mental rehearsal. There's this pretty cool video of, I believe it's Navy, the Blue Angel pilots, where they're mentally rehearsing their routine. Oh man, it's awesome. You gotta check it out. It's on YouTube somewhere. I'll see if I can find it and put the link down below. All right, and then lastly, I'll touch upon my emotions and aligning my emotions to what happened during the day. Do some more breathing, release some tension. If I have any stress that's just been compounding or still in me with, you know, because of the day, I'll go ahead and release that and try to restore that equilibrium when it comes to my emotions. Less stress, you have better clarity, more apt to reach your goals. All right, guys, that's all I have for now. Like I said, I'll go into more detail in some of these topics because there's just so much information. But like I said, one day at a time, be that person you want to be. You can do it.